Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. An 18-year-old was arrested for allegedly planning to commit a mass shooting on Valentine's Day.
CBS 4 following breaking news right now at 5. An Indiana high school student is accused of planning a Valentine's Day school shooting.
That student faces felony charges tonight and will not be returning to school. This is a developing story just coming into our newsroom. CBS 4's Jenny Drasler spoke with police in Mooresville literally moments ago about this developing story.
I just spoke to Mooresville Police Chief Kerry Buckner, and he described this entire situation as just disturbing. Police took 18-year-old Trinity Shockley into custody Tuesday. She's charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 count of intimidation and threat to commit terrorism, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit intimidation and threat to commit terrorism. Now, this all started Tuesday when court documents show that a friend of Shockley's called a tip to the Sandy Hook tip line about Shockley's plans to carry out a mass shooting tomorrow, Valentine's Day, at Mooresville High School. Court documents say the friend said Shockley had access to an AR-15 and had ordered a bulletproof vest. Court documents also say a social media chat revealed Shockley had been planning a mass shooting for about a year. Mooresville Police Chief Kerry Buckner says during the investigation, police discovered Shockley had an obsession with mass shooters. Her room had a collage of posters of previous mass shooters on her wall, and Shockley confessed to a school counselor that she had an obsession with Nicholas Cruz, who was the Parkland, Florida mass shooter that took place on Valentine's Day back in 2018. Shockley's backpack had 3 notebooks inside of it, each with swastikas, the words kill, bang, I hate you all, die, die, die. Some other disturbing experts about mass shootings were also found in those notebooks, including that Shockley told investigators she wanted to prove that she's the Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz's #1 fan. Mooresville police say her plans were just shocking.
It's very disturbing. I mean, this is a small town, and a lot of us have, I have family that goes there. And a lot of my guys have kids that go to Mooresville High School. And to think, nothing ever happens in Mooresville, it's a small town, but to think that somebody was plotting to hurt a lot of individuals, of kids, future leaders of this country or whoever, is pretty disturbing.
Chief Buckner says Shockley's father is cooperating with the investigation. There also will be school at Mooresville High tomorrow, just with a beefed up security presence. Back to you in the studio.
Now, according to reports, 18-year-old Trinity Shockley was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit terrorism, and intimidation and other charges as related to a mass shooting she planned to participate in on Valentine's Day. And she possibly would have been able to commit that crime had it not been for a friend who called up the Sandy Hook tip line and told everyone about her plans to participate in this mass shooting, and told them about her plans to get access to an AR-style weapon and ordering a bulletproof vest. And on getting that information, police then arrested Trinity Shockley, and as they were doing their investigation into this crime, they soon found out that Trinity Shockley had a whole lot of information regarding mass shooters and basically had a fixation and obsession with them. And as she had this fixation and obsession with mass shooters, she talked about an admiration for Parkland school mass shooter Nicholas Cruz, and talked about how she wanted to participate in this mass shooting as a way to pay tribute to him, and also talked about being the lover of Nicholas Cruz to the point where she wanted to again have a relationship with him. Now, the police in Indiana see the behavior of Trinity Shockley as some disturbing behavior as related to this alleged crime. But when I take a critical examination of Trinity Shockley, she definitely fits a pattern and profile of behavior that I talk about in both of my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis. And what's happening here with Trinity Shockley is she's basically part of a growing trend and a pattern of behavior I have been seeing in children over the last couple of years since we've come out of the pandemic. And since we've come out of the pandemic, I have been seeing a very disturbing trend where the ages of mass shooters has been getting younger. And as it's been getting younger, it's showing me how the impact of mass shootings in the media is affecting our children and leading to America's children growing up to become children of the corn. Now, in my book, The Woman Crisis, I talk about Children of the Corn, which is derived from that 1980 Stephen King horror movie. Now, The Children of the Corn basically was a horror movie about children who had grown up and became violent. And in the case of America, we have a problem with our children because our children aren't really being raised. And with our children not being raised, what's happening is that these children are not growing up with the structure of a family, and without the structure of a family to give children an understanding of their role in the world and their purpose in life, what's happening is that our children are growing up like wild stalks, and as they grow up like wild stalks without any sort of structure or order, they are basically not looking to build on the world that's been established for them. No, they're looking to cause chaos in the world, and that's what Trinity Shockley was looking to do as related to making this plan for this mass shooting. Now, this plan for this mass shooting that Trinity Shockley was planning was basically because with Trinity Shockley, she was a child who did not grow up with a family structure, one, and two, did not grow up with any sort of actual pop culture to follow. Now, when it comes to America, in the days of the 1950s, the wealthy basically wanted to destroy the American family, and they wanted to destroy the American family because they did not want the father to lead the home and have it following in the path of following the gospel of Jesus Christ. No, what the wealthy wanted to do was go out here and create a whole group of consumers, and they wanted to create that group of consumers by pulling the father out of the home so that it would not have its head or its steward, and not have the mother there to be the first teacher because she would be so busy working, and as she would be working, she would not be working on teaching her children values. No, she would be working at this corporate job as the de facto head, and she would be out here teaching herself to be a consumer, and her kids would be in front of the television. And as the children would be in front of the television, they would be learning the values of the media and learning how to be consumers just like mom. Unfortunately, as times have changed and we've gone from being a culture that watched television with Gen Xers and millennials, we've gone to a culture of kids migrating over to the internet. And as the internet has been the main device that children have been put in front of, what's happened with our children is that instead of them being programmed to go out here and be consumers of products, they've been taught to be consumers of information. And sadly, as our children have been taught to become consumers of information, what's happened to a lot of our children is that instead of them being on the TV in front of that television learning about life from the way the wealthy wanted kids to learn, what they are learning is a lot of misinformation, and that comes from sitting up in front of the internet with these newer devices such as smartphones and tablets. And as they've sat there in front of these devices completely unsupervised, a lot of these children are being indoctrinated not to become consumers, but to become producers of anarchy and chaos based on the misinformation they have been sitting there imbibing. Now, when it comes to today's kids, like Trinity Shockley, basically have been sitting in front of an internet that basically is again filled with unfiltered misinformation, on platforms like white supremacist websites and other websites that promote misinformation regarding individuals like mass shooters. And this misinformation basically goes out here and romanticizes these individuals for the heinous crimes they've participated in. And as it romanticizes all of these horrible crimes they participate in, what happens to kids like Trinity Shockley is that they start looking at these people who are just monsters and some of the most reprehensible human beings in the world as heroes, and they start looking up to those individuals. And the main reason why they look up to those individuals is because when it comes to America, America doesn't have a pop culture anymore that kids can get into. No, unlike the Gen Xers who came up and the millennials who came up, where we had Saturday morning cartoons, we had video games, we had comic books, we had things that were related to our own culture. When it comes to the kids of these new generations, they don't have a pop culture because many of the baby boomers refuse to let those kids discover the world or explore the world from their perspective. And that's what leads to them exploring the world unsupervised on the internet. And as they go on the internet, what they do is go down these rabbit holes as related to many of these websites that are filled with misinformation. And as they go down these rabbit holes, reading about things like these mass shooters and learning more about the trends of these mass shooters, what happens is that these kids' heads get filled with a lot of misinformation, and that misinformation, which is based in white supremacy, has them thinking that going out here and participate in these violent crimes is something that they should aspire to, and has them believing that they need to go out here and aspire to participate in these crimes and believe that this is an accomplishment. This is what these kids learn as related to life on the internet because they have not been taught anything by their parents, and since their parents really are not supervising them on the internet to basically vet this information to let them know the difference between information and misinformation, this is why so many kids are growing in this trend of either making plans to participate in a mass shooting or make plans to go out here and participate in some violence. This is what these children are doing because there's nobody there to scaffold them and give them structure as related to the internet. And this is something many kids really don't understand about the internet because, again, with my generation, we grew up with computers, but we understood that being on a computer is something that you need to really be supervised with, and you also need to take it with a grain of salt. That's one of the things Gen Xers understand, is the information you see on the internet may not be true, but when it comes to kids who, like this Trinity Shockley, she grew up in an age of computers, and as she grew up in this age of computers, she basically, again, grows up believing everything on the internet to be true, not understanding that a lot of these websites are not really legitimate websites. They are just basically the website of an individual presenting their opinion on a subject, and that opinion could be one that, again, is filled with a lot of misinformation, such as racism, such as white supremacy, and such as going out here and celebrating individuals like Nicholas Cruz who participated in violent crimes. These are the things that these children are learning, and learning because there is no parent there to go out here and vet this information and be an authority to let those kids know everything you see on the internet isn't good, and be a good steward by limiting their children's access to the internet. This is something a lot of parents really need to do, because what I'm seeing here with a lot of kids these days is that they're going down these rabbit holes. Again, this is something that happened over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, even before the pandemic. And again, the pandemic further exacerbated this whole mental sickness as related to the internet, because kids during lockdown were basically locked down with these smartphones and these tablets. And as they were locked down with these smartphones and these tablets, they were basically on these websites imbibing all of this misinformation and imbibing all of this misinformation as related to conspiracy theories because, again, these kids had no pop culture. They had no pop culture to get into to have something of their own. And since they didn't have something of their own, they basically gravitated over to all of these incidents that were happening with people in their age range. And because there were no celebrities their age, what was happening is they were looking up to people like Nicholas Cruz and these mass shooters like these other ones who are younger, like Peyton Gendron and Ethan Crumbley. And this is creating a very disturbing pattern as related to the behavior of children. Again, a very disturbing pattern. Again, America doesn't want to acknowledge the same way it doesn't want to acknowledge the man crisis and woman crisis in this country, all due to the complete collapse of the American family, the complete collapse of the American family that has a lot of our kids completely confused as related to their identity, because it's reported that this teenager was basically a they, them, even though they were born a female, according to some reports. And this whole thing is because the children don't have that foundation in family. And because they don't have that foundation in family, this child of the corn, who was a child in crisis, almost participated in a heinous crime and participated in a heinous crime basically because this child had no real understanding of how to aspire to achieve anything. That's another thing that's happening with a lot of these children. They have no understanding of how to aspire for anything as related to achieving excellence. And that's why they would like, instead of working to aspire to get fame, they'd rather end their lives in infamy, hoping to be with people like Nicholas Cruz in a penitentiary. This is a delusion that this child had, a delusion that they had regarding their lives because they had low self-esteem and had low self-worth, all due to the fact that they had no family there to give them structure, set a series of goals for them, or set a direction for them. And it just shows the sad state of affairs of America over the last 60 years as we've basically broken down the family. As we've broken down the family, removed the father from the home, had the mother go out here and work, or in some cases have both parents work. We put kids in front of television, but now there's no television teaching kids and directing them through the Madison Avenue Hollywood mindset anymore. We have kids on the internet, and with the internet basically being an misinformation superhighway these days, so many kids are getting misinformed, and as they get a miseducation on subjects that are far beyond their comprehension, because that's another aspect of this people aren't really looking at. A lot of these children are being exposed to stuff that they're just not mentally, emotionally, or spiritually ready for. And what's happening to those kids is, as they're exposed to this material, they are learning things that they don't need to know about life without, and the whole thing is they're doing it without parental guidance. And that's how we're getting this trend of kids who are either participating in mass shooting or aspiring to participate in a mass shooting. We're getting this trend because we don't have anybody showing love. And the great irony of this whole plan was this girl wanted to do this during Valentine's Day, to express her hatred and contempt for people, expressed that hatred and contempt for people because she was not shown love as related to family, which is a big problem with America these days as related to this whole crisis. And again, this man crisis and woman crisis is creating children of the corn who are basically looking to not bear fruit, but looking to grow up like thorns and briars that are basically choking out the culture because they don't have a culture of their own outside of seeing these violent crimes. And this whole having no culture of their own is basically creating a crisis among our kids, where instead of aspiring to go out here and achieve and accomplish something great, they want to make great violence by going out here and following in the lead of mass shooters, because we have no mass media showing them a world that they can be a part of. Now, if you want to learn more about what motivates children to grow up like this and wind up with this motivation to participate in this type of violence, and learn how to find ways to identify it and prevent it, you can pick up my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about the man crisis, woman crisis that are plaguing this society, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.